Lee Too Deep. Hello dear friends. Dear friends, life will never always create pink, but always exist good and bad. Today we follow that struggle with Too Deep, attacked by the enemy group of My Love Jame. We will witness the extremely brutal confrontation and pursuit. Jame was stunned when the person he trusted as his secretary was the arm of his enemy. How the story unfolds, let's follow James. A young Vietnamese agricultural engineer raised and educated in the UK, made the unusual choice to return to Vietnam as part of a sustainable organic farming project in a remote village in the Central Highlands. With his polite demeanor, sincere eyes, and heart anchored to his roots, James stood out from the many so-called foreign returned outsiders the villagers had seen before. And yet, the first person to stir his heart was not someone wealthy or worldly, but Too Deep, a village school teacher, orphaned young, living with her frail grandmother in a tumble-down wooden shack by the forest edge. Too Deep possessed a raw beauty, untouched by cosmetics or pretense. Her eyes shone with strength and intelligence despite the weight of a hard life. She taught at an isolated outpost school, trekking through forests by day and tending vegetables or weaving conical hats by night. At first, she had no fondness for James, assuming he was another pampered theorist. But James didn't give up. He repaired desks, hiked with her to farms, taught children how to make compost. Slowly, her heart softened. She saw that he wasn't much different from a villager himself, just someone who spoke halting Vietnamese and smiled more gently than most. Their love blossomed through misty forest rains, nights lit by oil lamps as they taught village children, and long, muddy days repairing dikes. James no longer dreamed of a city skyline. He found joy in simple meals, shared chores, and quiet talks with Deep under the stars. If all life offered was a modest home and a hard-working wife like her, he thought, he would count it as complete happiness. But peace didn't last. Trouble began when James's project disrupted a lucrative illegal logging route running through the ancient forests behind the village. Local authorities were powerless, and the villagers too afraid to speak up. Behind it all was a name that froze blood: John, a cold-blooded smuggler of mixed Vietnamese and Western descent, known for trafficking timber, drugs, even people. James had once exposed one of John's drug routes in Laos, forcing him into hiding. Now John returned, bent on revenge. He discovered James's weakness, Too Deep. One stormy evening, as Too Deep walked home from school, strangers emerged from the shadows. They wore no uniforms, said nothing, only stared with eyes of steel. She ran, barefoot, into the jungle, but the forest was treacherous. She disappeared. The village searched. James went nearly mad. He scoured valleys, hired rescue teams, but found only her blood-stained scarf near Silver Stream Hill, a known smuggler's route. Despair turned to rage. He knew only one man could be behind it: John. James abandoned protocol and started hunting, not as an engineer, but as a desperate man with nothing to lose. He probed every clue, questioned allies, and then made a shocking discovery: Trang, his quiet, efficient secretary, was John's half-sister. He found an old family photo on her phone and confirmed her real name, Tran Tian. James confronted her. She broke, crying. She confessed everything: their shared father, John's sudden reappearance, his threats. She'd helped him hide documents and reroute shipments, but she never knew he would kidnap someone. Faced with James's fury and her own guilt, Trang gave up John's location, a false ginseng farm atop Cold Creek Ridge, deep within the forbidden forest. Meanwhile, in a suffocating underground bunker, Too Deep lay shackled and bruised, yet her spirit held strong. She memorized guards' routines, clung to the hope James would come. James couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, his calm eyes now sunken, trembling hands clutching her teaching notebook and the scarf that once smelled of wildflowers. Villagers whispered prayers as he wandered the woods, calling her name. He had become unrecognizable, a man who had cast aside honor, safety, and career to reclaim his love. Armed with Trang's confession, James contacted authorities. A special task force mobilized, provincial police, forest rangers, border guards. They planned a three-pronged raid using drones, thermal scans, and dogs. Hidden beneath tarp-covered sheds, the task force discovered logs stacked like hills, crates of heroin, and illegal firearms. James, though barred from joining officially, disguised himself as a ranger. He knew the forest better than anyone. His heart pounded with every step. Was Deep still alive? The raid began at dawn. Gunfire cracked the silence. John's men fought back with traps, rolling logs, homemade explosives. The battle raged 2 hours. The camp burned. John tried to flee but was caught. Wrists shackled, eyes bitter with defeat. Behind the compound, James found a steel hatch. He pried it open. There she was. Dirty, emaciated, eyes dimmed, but alive. He collapsed in tears, clutching her to his chest. Their escape was far from over. John's stragglers discovered them. A firefight erupted. They ran through bamboo thickets. Bullets slicing air. Deep slipped into a ravine. James dove after her, pulling her from icy waters, clinging to her as they bled and crawled. Just as all hope seemed lost, a GPS signal hidden in Trang's old backpack guided a border patrol team to their rescue. John was captured alive. The entire operation unraveled. Trang, arrested, cooperated fully, surrendering encrypted emails, codes, and bank trails. Her remorse spared her from full punishment. James and Deep returned to the village, welcomed with tears and joy. She healed slowly. James never left her side. Night after night, he held her hand, whispering the same vow, "You're safe now. I won't let you vanish again." A year later, the forest housed a new community ranger station James helped build. A proper school with a red-tiled roof replaced the old hut. And beneath the ancient star tree during the spring festival, James braided a ring of wild grass and asked Deep to be his wife. No diamonds, no designer dress, only a vow born from blood, fire, and a love that never surrendered.